Welcome back to CBS Mornings, where we have more on the emotional custody battle over a little girl rescued by American forces after a 2019 raid in Afghanistan. The child, known as Baby L, is now 3.5 years old, and she's been adopted by an American military family. But an Afghan couple say that they are the child's rightful family, and they accuse the American Marine and his wife of unlawfully taking custody of her. The American couple spoke with senior investigative correspondent Catherine Herridge in their first TV interview. And Catherine joins us now with part 2 of Baby L's story. Catherine, I've been talking about this for 24 hours now. I can't wait to see what part 2 brings.
Thanks and good morning. When Joshua and Stephanie Mast met the Afghan couple caring for Baby L, it was clear to both families they were not on the same page.
The controversy and confusion around Baby L is rooted in 2 very different accounts of how her adoption happened. As the Taliban swept through Afghanistan, the Masts frantically worked to get the child out. They arranged for the Afghan couple to bring Baby L to the U.S. In August 2021, the Masts and the Afghan couple met face-to-face for the first time at Ramstein Air Base in Germany. The Afghan woman was pregnant at the time.
We were cleared to take her in Germany, and we chose to let her process through. He kept conveying, like, my wife is attached to the child, but when she has her baby, she'll be fine. And then when his wife wasn't, that's when he's changed his tune, basically.
So the Afghan male tells you, don't worry about my wife. She's going to have her own baby. She's going to forget about this child.
Exactly.
From Germany, the Afghan couple flew to Virginia with Baby L and then traveled to Fort Pickett military base. The couple says in court filings they thought they were bringing Baby L to the U.S. for medical treatment, while the Masts say they made it clear that Baby L would become their adopted child.
Did you feel that you effectively communicated that you had custody of this child and that you were legally responsible for the child in the U.S. courts?
Absolutely. I mean, they used her military ID and her U.S. name and identity to get to America.
It wasn't just medical care. And so when he, throughout the course of the crisis, he's like, so could she go to university? And we're like, absolutely. So it was, the understanding was very clear that it was a long-term commitment throughout the course of a childhood all the way to adulthood.
The child was transferred from the Afghan couple to the Masts at Fort Pickett. By all accounts, the encounter was fraught. The Afghan woman broke down in tears and begged Mast not to take the child.
I was in the car, and so the State Department representative brought her out to me, and I could hear an urgency in her voice. So I said, is everything okay? And she's like, no, they're getting a little emotional. And then Joshua came out about 5 minutes later and upset, just visibly just bothered. And he said that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do.
Court records indicate the Afghan woman became depressed and suicidal after the transfer. While the Afghan couple has declined repeated interview requests from CBS News, in October the woman told the Associated Press, "Our hearts are broken. We have no plans for a future without her." In messages reviewed by CBS News, the Afghan man told an interpreter that he felt, quote, betrayed by Mast. The couple also claims in court documents that the Masts fraudulently obtained a passport for the child.
How do you respond to allegations that your family kidnapped the child?
I would say they're false. We have been honest about who we are and our concerns over the child from the very first day.
According to court documents, the Afghan couple eventually relocated to Texas. The woman gave birth to a daughter not long after Baby L was transferred to the Masts. She told the Associated Press that every time she buys an outfit or present for her daughter, they buy a matching one for Baby L. For the last 16 months, Baby L has lived with the Masts and their 4 sons.
Why are you sharing her story now?
I think the reason that we chose to speak up finally is just to tell the real story. We're not out to chase down the allegations or what has been said about us, but just to share from the heart what she's gone through, what our family's gone through, and why we did what we did.
So to be clear, you wanted to stay in the background, but there was a tipping point. What was the tipping point?
I think when the Taliban calls you out by name and agrees with your opponents about what should happen to this little girl, that's the point where we're going to start fighting back.
Joshua Mast
Last fall, the Taliban posted a video claiming Joshua Mast, quote, forcefully took Baby L. They vowed to seriously pursue the issue with American authorities. So the child is, quote, returned to her relatives. The U.S. State Department told CBS News that reuniting the child with the family members in Afghanistan was the right thing to do. Our position at that time, as well as our position now, is straightforward. In court papers, the Justice Department also said granting the Mast custody and adoption of the baby are contrary to the foreign policy interests of the United States, and Mast's actions were in violation of Virginia law.
In the court filings, the federal government has called the custody order unlawful and improper. What's your response?
I vehemently disagree with that characterization of it. I don't think any child should be turned over without a DNA test.
The then Afghan government determined the husband to be the baby's first cousin. But a Virginia judge in the adoption case recently found there was no DNA evidence presented to show any likely family relation because the Afghan couple had resisted DNA testing.
How do you explain the refusal?
How do I explain the first? I think they know that they're not biologically related.
All right, first official write-up.
As the case plays out in the courts, the Mast priority, they say, is keeping Baby L safe.
What's at stake?
Her future, absolutely her life.
I would say that her everything is at stake. And so we're going to continue to defend her just like we would any of our other children.
The Virginia judge also found that the Afghan couple can challenge the final adoption because they cared for the child for 18 months, but noted there are still questions to be answered on both sides. Adoption laws in Virginia are very strict, and after 6 months, adoptions are generally considered final. Successful challenges are extremely rare.
And a 3.5-year-old, which is Baby L's age now, same age as Teddy, you're chatty, you're aware. If you've been living with this family for 18 months, any kind of movement out of there is going to be hard.
But on the contrary, they spent nearly the same amount of time living with the Afghan family, right?
But
So
at a younger age.
At a much younger age.
But the Afghan family doesn't want to present any DNA evidence, number one. And number two, this only became an issue because both of her parents, excuse me, were killed in the war.
Correct.
So that's why she's an orphan.
And as Gayle mentioned yesterday, things can get lost in translation.
Yeah.
But it seems like there's so much he say, she say with how their accounts aren't matching up when it comes
There are
to
a
the
lot
two
of
families.
conflicts in the accounts. We could be looking at state and federal trials within the next year and a half. Whatever the outcome, it's likely it could be appealed, so it's shaping up to be a years-long process. What I would say is that it's clear from our reporting that so many parties are invested in this child.
Yeah.
The Afghan family, the Mast, the military service members, the nurses, the doctors that helped care for her.
But the Justice Department doesn't appear to be supporting
The Justice Department is very clear that they feel that this adoption should never have happened, and they say it's a violation of U.S. foreign policy interests.
I hope the judge,
Afghan
though,
family hasn't proven that they're really related to this little girl.
and the prospects for a little girl in Afghanistan are not very good, as we've reported on this show.
Right.
But the Afghan couple is living here in the United States
And will
right
stay?
now. Well, they were paroled into the United States almost 2 years ago. It'll be 2 years ago in August. The Department of Homeland Security can't discuss specific cases, but there is a process to ultimately decide whether they would remain in the U.S.
She's clearly loved by two families.
Amazing
That's it.
story, Catherine.
Deeply loved by two families.
Yeah, she is.
Boy, that's complicated. Thank you, Catherine.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Always good to see you.